the Karoline Leavitt gone mad as Beyonce humiliates her on live TV. You heard right, and all this unfolded in front of millions during a high-stakes broadcast that left fans reeling. Sparks flew, egos clashed, and what seemed like a glamorous evening turned into a fiery spectacle of public humiliation. Karoline Leavitt, known for her fiery charisma and bold opinions, entered the night expecting triumph. Little did she know, the Queen of Music herself, Beyonce, was about to bring the house down, and not in the way anyone expected. One cutting remark, a single moment on live TV, and the internet exploded. As Karoline's face flushed with anger and embarrassment, the cameras captured every agonizing second. The fallout was immediate, but what led to this shocking confrontation? And why did it escalate so quickly? And that was just the beginning. Karoline Leavitt was the golden girl of her time, a woman whose very name exuded a mix of ambition, charisma, and unrelenting determination. Starting as a fiery political commentator, she captivated audiences with her eloquent yet unfiltered opinions, effortlessly transitioning into a social media sensation. Her rise was a modern-day fairy tale, her ascent so rapid it felt almost predestined. By the age of 28, Karoline had carved a niche for herself, standing at the confluence of political discourse, pop culture, and sheer star power. "She's like a firework," her former publicist once said in an interview. Unpredictable, explosive, and impossible to ignore. You either loved her or hated her, but you couldn't look away. Her unapologetic attitude was her signature. Whether addressing controversial topics or engaging in light-hearted banter with her followers, Karoline had mastered the art of drawing people in. Her late-night talk show appearances routinely became viral moments. Fans adored her audacity. Detractors seethed at her dominance. She was an enigma wrapped in relentless ambition, commanding attention with the ease of a seasoned performer. Her social media empire, spanning millions of followers across multiple platforms, was a digital kingdom where she reigned supreme. With every post, tweet, or video, she drew people into her orbit, often sharing candid glimpses of her life while subtly promoting her carefully curated image. Fashion brands clamoured to dress her, tech giants competed to sponsor her, and even global charities sought her endorsement. Karoline's name wasn't just a brand, it was a phenomenon. At the height of her fame, she strode confidently into one of the most significant live TV events of the year, a star-studded gala, broadcast to millions worldwide. Dressed in a dazzling emerald gown that shimmered under the stage lights, she was the epitome of poise and power. The audience buzzed with excitement, their eyes glued to her as she took centre stage. She knew how to own a room, her commanding presence making even the grandest venues feel intimate. Yet, fame is a double-edged sword, and in the dazzling world of celebrities, power can shift in an instant. Unbeknownst to Karoline, the night that seemed destined to cement her position as an icon would also set the stage for a public humiliation that no one, not even her most fervent critics, could have anticipated. It started innocently enough. Karoline was invited as a guest panelist at the event, a glittering night of celebration and dialogue broadcast to millions worldwide. The theme of the evening was unity and collaboration, but beneath the surface, subtle currents of competition and tension rippled through the room. As the stars took their seats on the elaborately designed panel stage, Karoline found herself 2 chairs away from none other than Beyonce, the Queen of Pop, a cultural icon whose presence alone demanded reverence. The discussion began smoothly, with panelists sharing their perspectives on creativity, inclusivity, and cultural evolution. However, when the topic turned to cultural appropriation, the atmosphere shifted. Karoline, never one to shy away from controversy, leaned into her microphone, her expression calm yet defiant. "I don't believe in pandering," she said, her voice slicing through the cordial tone of the evening like a blade. Authenticity is what matters, not bending to the court of public opinion, but standing firm in your truth. The audience reacted immediately. Some clapped, others murmured, while a few exchanged uneasy glances. It was a classic Karoline moment, provocative and polarizing. For a brief moment, Beyonce remained silent, her gaze focused on Karoline. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm, but carried the weight of undeniable authority. Authenticity, she said, her words deliberate and precise, isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about respect. Respect for the cultures, people, and stories that make us who we are. The tension in the room was palpable. The audience shifted in their seats, sensing an imminent storm. Karoline's lips curled into a faint, almost dismissive smile, and she leaned forward, interrupting Beyonce mid-sentence. "With all due respect," Karoline began, her voice dripping with controlled defiance, "respect goes both ways. People shouldn't have to apologize for being themselves or for expressing their opinions." The exchange escalated quickly. Beyonce's eyes narrowed slightly, her calm composure unwavering. "Expressing opinions," she countered, "doesn't mean disregarding the impact those words have on others. Words matter, Karoline. They carry power, just like actions." The sharpness of Beyonce's response drew an audible gasp from the audience. What started as a polite discourse had morphed into a clash of titans. Cameras zoomed in on their faces, capturing every flicker of emotion. Karoline's voice rose slightly, no longer able to mask her irritation. "And sometimes," she shot back, "people are just too sensitive. Not everything is an attack." Beyonce's response was swift and cutting. "Sensitivity," she said, her voice steady as a rock, "isn't a weakness, it's understanding, and that's something the world could use more of." The room fell into a stunned silence as the tension between the two icons reached its boiling point. The remaining panelists exchanged awkward glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the spectacle unfold. Meanwhile, the audience at home was glued to their screens, their social media feeds already alight with hashtags and comments. What was supposed to be a moment of unity had spiraled into a public confrontation, and the world was witnessing it live. Little did anyone know, this was just the beginning of a feud that would dominate headlines for weeks to come. Within minutes of the broadcast, the internet became a battleground. Picture Karoline vs. Beyonce was trending worldwide, with clips of the explosive exchange circulating on every social media platform. Fans couldn't get enough of the drama. Some sided with Karoline, applauding her unapologetic confidence and fierce defense of free speech. "Karoline speaks truth," one tweet read, accompanied by a barrage of fire emojis. But many more criticized her, accusing her of disrespecting a cultural icon whose influence transcended music. "This is why Karoline will never reach Bey's level," one viral tweet declared, which went on to garner over 1 million likes and hundreds of thousands of retweets. In the hours that followed, the confrontation exploded into a media frenzy. News outlets scrambled to cover the fallout, dissecting every word exchanged during the panel discussion. Talk show hosts couldn't resist jumping in, giving their own takes on the shocking incident. Some defended Karoline, calling her a modern-day truth-teller who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo. Others took a far harsher stance, questioning her maturity and respect for Beyoncé's legacy. A-listers weighed in too. Filmmaker Ava DuVernay, a close friend of Beyoncé's, tweeted, "There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. Karoline crossed it tonight." Her words sent ripples through Hollywood, and the backlash against Karoline seemed to intensify by the hour. Fans of both stars began warring in the comment sections, hurling insults back and forth. Karoline's once unshakable fanbase began to fracture as a result of the public scuffle. As the media whirlwind continued to churn, Karoline's team scrambled to put out the flames. Behind closed doors, crisis managers worked overtime, issuing a series of statements and interviews to defuse the situation. A hastily written post appeared on Karoline's social media accounts, attempting to quell the storm. In it, she claimed the confrontation had been a misunderstanding, adding that she had immense respect for Beyonce and her body of work. But the damage was done, and no amount of damage control could undo the impact. The court of public opinion was swift and merciless, and the people had made their judgment. Karoline's words and actions had been immortalized in a viral video that would haunt her career for years to come. The public's opinion of her was irrevocably changed, and no amount of PR could erase the stain of that single, heated exchange. Behind the scenes, Karoline's team fought to manage the fallout, but they knew that the incident would have lasting repercussions. The bright, fearless political commentator had become embroiled in an entirely different kind of battle, one that wasn't about policy or public speaking, but about power, respect, and the consequences of crossing one of the world's most beloved icons. Just when Karoline thought the dust had begun to settle, something unexpected happened. Days after the explosive live TV incident, a video resurfaced online, one that had been buried deep in the archives of the internet. It was a clip from a podcast Karoline had recorded several years earlier, before her fame had reached its current heights. In it, she appeared more raw, more candid, and perhaps too open about her opinions. The video, which had once been a forgotten relic of her early career, now surfaced at the worst possible time. In the grainy footage, Karoline was speaking with an interviewer, and her tone was casual, almost dismissive, as she commented on the entertainment industry's obsession with pop culture icons like Beyonce. "She's talented, sure," Karoline had said with a slight shrug, "but she's not untouchable. People need to stop treating her like a goddess. She's just another person doing her job." The words seemed innocent at the time, perhaps even a fair critique of the industry's larger-than-life celebrity culture. But now, in the wake of the public feud, those remarks were explosive. The video went viral within hours of its discovery, with fans, bloggers, and critics pouncing on it. They were quick to draw the connection between this past sentiment and Karoline's confrontation with Beyonce just days earlier. Turns out Karoline's been throwing shade at Beyonce for years. One tweet read, sparking a wildfire of commentary. "She's been hiding her true feelings all along. No wonder it got so heated." The video reignited the controversy, and the narrative around Karoline shifted dramatically. What was initially seen as a mere moment of passion, a spur-of-the-moment clash between two powerful women, now seemed to be part of a much deeper, long-standing animosity. Fans of Beyonce, already irate over the initial confrontation, now saw Karoline's remarks as proof of years of simmering resentment. They accused her of hiding her true feelings and using the public stage to unleash a personal vendetta against the pop legend. The hashtag #, Karoline Hates Beyonce, began trending, and the video became the focal point of a relentless media cycle. Even Karoline's supporters, who had defended her earlier, began to turn on her. Some speculated that the TV altercation wasn't as spontaneous as it appeared, that Karoline had been looking for a chance to air her grievances, and that the live panel had simply given her the platform to do so. Her credibility as a political commentator, once seen as refreshing and bold, was now called into question. People began to wonder if her actions were driven more by ego than by principle. The clip also exposed a darker side of Karoline's carefully crafted public image, one that was seemingly built on the idea of a fearless, no-nonsense personality who refused to bow to anyone, including the industry's biggest stars. But now, the public was beginning to see that her image might be more about concealing her insecurities than embracing her own authenticity. Behind the scenes, Karoline's team worked overtime, desperately trying to spin the situation and distance her from the resurfaced video. But with each passing hour, the damage was becoming harder to manage. The media, sensing blood in the water, continued to dig deeper into Karoline's past, unearthing old interviews, tweets, and posts that painted her as someone who had never truly respected the pop icon she had now clashed with so publicly. What had once been a personal spat had transformed into a full-blown media scandal, one that was only amplified by the revelation of Karoline's past words. The secret that had been hidden away far beneath the surface was now out in the open, and it seemed like it could change everything for her career. As the media storm raged on, Karoline retreated from the spotlight. Her once active and influential social media accounts went eerily silent. No more sharp-witted tweets, no more provocative Instagram posts. The carefully curated facade she had built over the years began to crumble, piece by piece. Paparazzi, who had once followed her every move, now caught only fleeting glimpses of her. They snapped photos of Karoline walking into her New York apartment, her face uncharacteristically hollow, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Her normally immaculate appearance was replaced with a look of dishevelment that shocked even her most devoted followers. The once confident, sharp-tongued woman seemed to have disappeared. Inside the apartment, alone in the stillness of her home, Karoline was unravelling. The weight of her actions, her words, and the fallout from her public clash with Beyonce seemed to press down on her with an intensity she hadn't anticipated. Every headline felt like a personal attack. Every notification on her phone, a reminder of the mess she had created. In a tearful phone call to her best friend, Karoline's walls finally came down. Her voice, typically strong and assertive, trembled as she confessed, "I don't know who I am anymore. I built this empire, and now it's crumbling around me. I thought I could handle it, but I'm just lost. I never imagined it would come to this." Her best friend, who had always been a pillar of support, tried to console her, urging her to take a break, to step back and breathe. But Karoline couldn't. She couldn't escape the noise. She couldn't shut out the echo of her own words, the relentless media scrutiny, or the wave of disappointment that seemed to follow her everywhere. Her team, desperate to regain control, insisted that she make a public apology. They believed it was the only way to salvage her career, to end the controversy before it destroyed her entirely. But Karoline was adamant. She wasn't going to bow to the pressure. She wasn't going to play the role of the apologetic, humble figure that the world expected her to be. Instead, she made a decision that would stun everyone. Alone in her living room, with the camera pointed at her and the lights dimmed low, she recorded a raw, unfiltered video. It was the kind of vulnerability she had never shown before, the kind of honesty that would either redeem her or sink her further into isolation. "I've made mistakes," she admitted, her voice cracking under the weight of emotion. "I said things I shouldn't have. I didn't handle things the right way, but I refuse to let this define me. I won't let one moment, one clash, erase everything I've worked for. I'm human. I make mistakes. But I'm not a villain." The video was raw, unpolished, and filled with the kind of emotional honesty that Karoline had spent years guarding. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes red from tears, her expression a mixture of regret and determination. "I know I hurt people, and I can't undo that, but I'm not going to hide. I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to come out stronger. You'll see." It was a turning point. The video was uploaded and immediately went viral, receiving mixed reactions. Some praised her for showing vulnerability and taking ownership of her actions, while others saw it as another calculated attempt at damage control. But no matter how people viewed it, one thing was clear. Karoline was no longer the untouchable, invincible figure she had once been. She was exposed, raw, and human. The fallout from her words, her actions, and the video would take time to unfold. But in that moment, Karoline had made her choice. She could have hidden away forever, retreating from the world that had once adored her. Instead, she chose to stand, broken and scarred, and faced the consequences of her actions. Karoline's raw, unfiltered video took the internet by storm. Fans, once divided, now found themselves praising her for showing vulnerability in a way she had never allowed herself to before. It was a stark contrast to the confident, sometimes brash image she had so carefully curated over the years. This new side of Karoline, the one who admitted her mistakes and spoke openly about her struggles, struck a chord with many who had previously criticised her. They saw her not just as a public figure, but as a real person who had faced the consequences of her actions. But while Karoline's video brought a mixture of support and sympathy, Beyonce's response sent ripples through the media. On her Instagram story, she posted a cryptic message that seemed to speak directly to the situation. Growth comes from accountability. It was a simple statement, yet it carried a powerful weight. Some saw it as an olive branch, while others interpreted it as a reminder that true growth required more than just an apology. It demanded change. The media buzzed with speculation about what would come next. Would Karoline and Beyonce ever be able to heal their fractured relationship? Or would the animosity between them only deepen with time? The world waited, eyes fixed on two of the most powerful women in entertainment, wondering what their next move would be. Weeks later, the answer came in the form of a surprise appearance. The two women, who had once clashed so publicly, were spotted at the same charity gala, an event that drew the attention of both the media and their fans. The night was meant to be a celebration of giving back, but it quickly turned into a spectacle as the two icons made their way to the stage together. The cameras flashed as they walked up side by side, their smiles wide and genuine. It was a moment that stunned the world. No one had expected this kind of reconciliation, especially after the highly public feud that had engulfed them both. As they stood in front of the crowd, the tension from weeks before seemed to melt away, replaced by an unexpected camaraderie. "We're stronger together than apart," Beyonce said, her voice calm and filled with conviction. She looked directly at Karoline, who nodded in agreement, her expression soft but resolute. It was a message of unity, of growth, and of respect, not just for each other, but for the journey they had both endured. The audience erupted in applause, their shock turning into admiration. The two women, once enemies in the public eye, had come together in a display of mutual understanding and strength. It was an image of reconciliation that no one had expected, but everyone seemed to appreciate. Karoline, who had once been known for her sharp tongue and defiant attitude, now stood beside one of the most influential women in the world. In that moment, it was clear that something had changed. Karoline wasn't just trying to rebuild her image, she was redefining it. The old narrative of arrogance and defiance had been replaced by one of humility, growth, and a willingness to learn from her mistakes. For Beyonce, the gesture was just as significant. While she had maintained a level of grace throughout the entire ordeal, her willingness to share the stage with Karoline showed that she, too, believed in the power of growth. The two women, though from vastly different worlds, had found common ground, and in doing so, had created a new narrative for their future. As the gala continued, the media buzzed with headlines about their unexpected reunion. But for Karoline, the night was more than just a public event. It was a turning point, a chance for her to step back into the spotlight, not as a controversial figure, but as someone who had faced her mistakes and emerged stronger for it. The comeback was not about winning the approval of the public. It was about reclaiming her story. And in that moment, Karoline Leavitt had taken the first step toward a new chapter, one where growth, accountability, and mutual respect would define her legacy. Karoline Leavitt's journey from the pinnacle of fame to the depths of public outrage, and then back again, was not just a story of scandal or redemption. It was a tale of resilience, a narrative of a woman who faced the wrath of a divided world and emerged from it stronger, more grounded, and more aware of the weight her words carried. To some, she became a cautionary tale, a lesson in the dangers of unchecked pride, arrogance, and the inevitable fallout that follows when a powerful figure stumbles. They said she was too bold, too brash, and perhaps too quick to speak before she understood the true impact of her words. But to others, Karoline was a symbol of redemption, a woman who owned her mistakes, faced them head-on, and refused to be defined by a single moment of controversy. In her vulnerability, she found the strength to rebuild not just her career, but her identity. The woman who had once been feared was now admired for the courage it took to admit she wasn't perfect. And as the world moved on, as the social media threads died down and the headlines turned to the next big scandal, one thing became abundantly clear. In the ever-changing realm of fame and power, the only constant is change. Some said Karoline's story had been one of fall from grace, but it was also one of reinvention. A woman who, at the peak of her fame, could have let her pride destroy her, instead chose to evolve and take responsibility for her actions. Her public apology, her quiet moments of self-reflection, and her eventual reconciliation with Beyonce made it clear. Karoline had found the strength to stand, not despite her mistakes, but because of them. And, perhaps most shockingly of all, even the fiercest of rivals could find common ground. It wasn't about who won or lost the battle for public opinion. It wasn't about who had the last word or the most followers. What mattered was the willingness to grow, to listen, and to extend an olive branch, even when the world was watching. As Karoline Leavitt smiled at the charity gala, standing beside Beyonce, one couldn't help but feel the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just a public relations stunt or a carefully crafted PR move. It was real. It was two powerful women from completely different worlds, coming together not just to heal their fractured relationship, but to send a message to the world. It was a reminder that even when everything seems lost, the opportunity for growth is always there. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a person can do is show their humanity, to admit their flaws, apologize, and push forward with grace. Some say she lost everything. Others say she finally found herself. In the end, maybe the real story wasn't about fame, or ego, or public clashes. Maybe it was about truth. The truth of who we are, the mistakes we make, and the strength it takes to rebuild, no matter how far we've fallen. As the cameras faded and the gala ended, one thing remained. Karoline Leavitt was no longer just a public figure caught in the storm of controversy. She was a woman who had lived her truth, unapologetically, vulnerably, and, above all, with the resilience to rise again. And for the world watching, that was the most powerful story of all. What do you think about the events that unfolded? Was it a genuine reconciliation or a calculated PR move? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more shocking stories of the stars.